Those community managers, the people who really care about their community, help foster that sense of we are all in this together and we're going to help each other solve whatever this problem is or work together or be happier. They are the glue that makes it happen. When communities don't work, or when you set up something and there's nobody there to manage it, somebody asking a question and it sits out there and absolutely no one responded to them. And that to me is the value of a community manager, because they may not know the answer, but they can help that person find the answer. So that's the number one way to get success, is to make sure that you invest in community managers, in their success, them being knowledgeable about the tool and all of its features and functionality, so that they can feel like they're contributing to the whole.
Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Intelligent Intranet. I'm Mark Cashman, running it Han Solo for this one. On today's episode, we chat with Amy Dolzine, a Microsoft Alliance Relationship Director for the Americas at EY, based out of Cleveland, Ohio. I grabbed time with Amy while she was here at the Microsoft Redmond campus, and for her day job, she was representing EY, meeting with various Microsoft folks to align on all that go-to-market strategy, value, and benefits, making sure we're all on the same page. So I took a page from that and ripped her away from that common day-to-day book so that we could talk about some of the foundational elements of community, which maybe in her world, in her history, started in Yammer, but it's really through her journey learning those best practices as a subject matter expert for planning and designing communities within the enterprise, what in the early days may have been referred to as the social enterprise, and I'm using my air quotes visually on an audio podcast. We then quickly got into the value and the status quo that then grew into what we call Viva Engage, and of course some of the related technology around the corner that provides additional internal communication levers, aka the one and only upcoming Viva Amplify. Yes, we got into some of the details of what she is already looking forward to round out that portfolio of community expression. We also got into a few other employee experience corners, layering in Amy's thoughts around Viva topics and just some generative AI fun, because that popped up in the conversation. There was a lot in chatting with Amy, and I think when you get to the end of this episode, you'll have a lot of trusted advice based on somebody who's been working in that space for quite some time and has been an outspoken community member and MVP, sharing what she knows, and today doing that again, sharing what she knows. I thought before we got into the discussion with Amy that I would just share a couple things that were top of mind based on either some of my use case or what I know of the products, where I think there's a ton of value just being a part of a community. That could just be the external physical tech community that I love and being with both mentally throughout the year, sharing ideas, being with at events. But when you think about communities internally at your own company, whether it's a broader enterprise, a smaller business, in the education space, government, wherever, there's that value of not being driven by hierarchy, or not everything has to go from top down or bottom up, but it really is just a breadth of people that have an interest in something. Might be topic driven, might be product related. It might just be silly things like what we do with our cats and dogs in our free time. And it's just fun to share. Even to the extent when I was on a call the other day and I had mentioned that my friend Peanut, dog companion here in the household, was sitting behind me. The very last thing when I said, if there are any more questions, the resounding answer was, can we meet Peanut? So of course I brought Peanut up onto the video screen. So dogs and cats within the community as a community, certainly important within the enterprise. The other thing it got me thinking is that there is a way to rationalize a lot of the reusable pieces that we build here at Microsoft. So when you start to use things like Viva Engage, of course, it has a history and a foundation element of being the Yammer experience, but it is also now a fundamental part of how you collect and have a two-way conversation on a SharePoint page. That's also powered by the same technology. Or if you're in a live event and you build into the experience the rich Q&A functionality, that's also based on the same technology. And we hope here a lot of the direction that we have from an engineering perspective is to make sure that if you learn it once, you'll understand how to do it again. Even though we know there is the plethora of communication tools for a variety of types of communication, when it comes to some of that standard ways that we can, when we can, across the technologies, we certainly will do that. And you would at least see the experience beyond Engage, even though Engage is really our foot forward for supporting communities in the enterprise. And for me personally, I've added Engage, and of course, previous to that, I used Yammer in the same way as one of the key lists of apps on my tool belt, because it helps me reach beyond broader known DLs or known groups that I know who is in that group, or if something's been more structurally designed so that it gives me sort of a targeted way to connect with people. With communities, it can be very targeted, but it can also be more broad where I'm connecting with people who I might not know, and they may not know me, but I'm sharing it in a way that I know I'm sharing to the right community, and that it's sometimes a place where I can share fun stuff, even if I get some eye rolls. The expectation is that you share what is ever on top of your mind. It doesn't have to be specific to a big launch or a big announcement or a deep planning guide or something like that. It could just be 3 sentences. I had a great time joining a user group last night. Here is the selfie that I took while I was talking during my presentation. That's it. Post it. You'll get some nice engagement with other people that may have been there or wish they could have been there or want to see if they can join you next time. It always is a spark of a conversation. And it's really nice, especially when you don't quite know everybody, that you can at least reach them where they are genuinely interested in some of those same things. So consider being a part of multiple communities, ones that you have for your day job, but also those ones that are a little bit closer to some of the things you're passionate about, and you will find other passionate people. Like you are about to meet another passionate person, because I want to turn your attention to the wonderful discussion that I had with Amy Dolzine on the Microsoft campus, all about communities in the enterprise. It is my pleasure now to introduce Amy Dolzine to the Interzone. Thank you, Amy, for not only being here in Redmond to do your job, but also to take a little bit moment to help me with my job to be on the Interzone. So welcome to Microsoft Campus and welcome to the Interzone.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So people may know you from the past. Your recent past and now your present into the future is a little bit more defined. So it's kind of a new direction that you've gone role-wise. But just so people get a sense of who you are today, who you were yesterday, if anything's changed life or work-wise, let us know. But who are you? What do you do at EY? And maybe what you're doing here in Redmond.
Thank you so much for having me. I started at EY about 8.5 years ago. But I was part of the Microsoft world long before that. I mean, I was building my own SharePoint sites a long, long time ago. So I've always loved this technology. It's always been part of the thing that I just love helping people be more productive at work and giving them a little bit of technology joy every now and then to make their days a little less terrible. So I started on my Yammer journey way back in the day in like 2013. It was my role at a company I was working for then called Lubrizol to help roll out Yammer to that organization. And along the way, working in Cleveland, I met through the Yammer customer network, the YCN, that then became the Office 365 network, which was a Yammer community.
I missed the day when the tech community was on Yammer.
Yes.
I still miss a couple of the features that it has, the new tech community, which is great. Doesn't quite have, yeah. And we built this really nice community of people who lived and worked in the Cleveland area, rolling out collaborative technologies to their organizations. And one of those was EY. And lo and behold, somebody needed me to take on a role at EY, and off I went to go help continue the rollout that had been started by Tammy Young-Heck, who people may also know because she's a legend in this space. Anyway, I helped roll out Yammer and SharePoint and other collaborative technologies at EY for almost 3 years. Then I rolled into being a technology consultant for EY. So I was traveling to various cities and helping our clients roll out Microsoft 365, mostly SharePoint, OneDrive, Yammer, Teams. Those were my main focus. And then
About 2.5 years ago, I had the opportunity to join what's called the EY Microsoft Alliance, which is how these two amazing organizations that I'm so proud to be a part of in multiple ways, how we go to market together to help our clients solve their biggest problems.
And I think our clients have some problems. No, I mean, their problems are large. So if we went and kind of stayed in that 8 years ago and then kind of progressed forward, it feels like I want to ask, do you have any of those 8-year-old SharePoint sites that are still functional? You don't have to answer that.
I don't think so. They've all been migrated. They were in an old platform and they had to be migrated to the new cloud. So all things dissipated. Off into the modern SharePoint world we go.
As things dissipate, that might be kind of where I was going to ask next, is we were starting to build some social things into SharePoint. But then we made, I think, a quick turn to acquire Yammer and the capabilities of really, having something that you could call social enterprise, or however you might have pitched it 8 or 5 or however many years ago. But I want to kind of start to help the audience and myself even to understand, when you introduce something like Yammer at a company, what role does it really play? I feel like it's been answered a lot over the years, but because it's still a thing in its new iteration of Viva Engage, I'd like to understand, before the technology, what role does it play for internal communications, and how would you have pitched it then? How do you pitch it now? The value of it for a company to go, yes, we're going to adopt Yammer, or yes, we're going to roll out Viva Engage today.
Viva Engage, the app formerly known as Yammer, I don't care what it's called, has some amazing superpowers that no other app has. As we were discussing, the tech community, the Microsoft tech community, which is an amazing technology. It's got tons of communities and all kinds of stuff. It still doesn't have the magic that a Yammer conversation can have, or a Viva Engage conversation can have. When we were rolling out the decision, when I started at Lubrizol, to decide whether or not we were going to roll out SharePoint conversations, whatever that was called. And we thankfully went to like a roadshow that Steve Wen and Ashley Penning now, they came to Cleveland, they did a roadshow, and we were there, and I was like, that's it, we have to roll this out instead. It's a much more natural, conversational, social tool. I mean, it's evolved a lot since then, but it's still at its core, it's about building authentic communities in your professional workspace. And when I would pitch the idea of this community management to other clients, as we're trying to roll out Yammer or Teams or whatever at those clients, it's about building a community of people who might have the same job title, or a community of people who might care about, in the ESG sense of the world, they might care about a really big service line that we're all a part of. Some organizing element about it can be a community, but those can be kind of official communities of these are all the people who officially do this, and we're going to all talk about these things officially here. Or it's the group of people that has just started in the past couple of months. We've got a generative AI thing has really ignited people's creativity. And so while they used to post their own photographs, and people still do have, we have an EY photography club and an EY weekend bakers of EY club. Those are all really great. But people are getting super creative about using these tools to come up with really fun and funky things, and teaching people along the way about what they did, what tool they used, why they used it, what prompts they gave the thing to, because they're trying to learn it on their own, but then also share that. And that's the beauty of Yammer or Viva Engage, is that it allows you to share what you know with anybody out there who doesn't know that you know that, but might want to know that. And they can be changed, and they can learn more, and then they can also learn to share what they've done. And it just creates a real sense of understanding what that tacit knowledge is that's out in the organization. I also feel like it's a very good tool for large organizations where it's hard to build community with somebody who, if you are here in Redmond, and the person that you work with all the time is in Cleveland or Singapore or India, there's often that you would never pass each other in the hallway. You would never walk by their computer and say, hey, what are you working on? It gives you this chance, this old phrase, work out loud. You can tell people what you're working on out loud, and other people can benefit from it and be like, oh, I didn't know the answer to that question. Or I have this question. Oh, look, somebody's going to answer it for me. And that person is 5,000 miles away and I never would have met them.
I heard you say tacit knowledge. I've seen it sometimes referred to as it falls within the knowledge management space.
Yeah.
But I think a couple things that I've heard you say, and I'm going to load in something that I walked in when I went to see Liz Sundet and one of my other peers, Graham Kent. They were talking about the value of Engage in the enterprise. They were talking about communities essentially.
Yeah.
And the part that I walked in on, they said, and it's the most important thing to have a cats at Microsoft community. And they said it with all, straight face. And of course, they knew they were playing the straight person to have it as a bit of a joke, but then to pay it off with the way you described it. You not only have cats at Microsoft, but if you don't have cats at Microsoft, you're missing out on a kind of a fun engagement for people who have cats and want to share their cat pictures. Or, like you said, the various groups that aren't driven by hierarchy. They're not driven by, which product you work on. Mm-hmm. It's something you have interest in or have subject matter expertise and maybe can answer a question or two. And that feeds into you also being able to ask a question.
Yep.
So I love the concept of, yes, it falls under knowledge management. We should mine it for good details so that people don't have to ask the same question twice. But it's also just a place where you get to be a little bit more yourself at work.
Yes, exactly. It gives you that chance to reach out and find a new person that you didn't know, or perhaps help them build their own brand in a concept that maybe they know a lot about, but that's not their day job right now, and they might answer a few questions, and then all of a sudden, who knows? Maybe they wind up in that service line, or they wind up in that sector, or they wind up working for this person because they really need that skill set now, and they didn't need it then. And it just gives you a chance to really show what you know to people who can benefit from it.
So if we're starting to understand a little bit the why you would use something like Yammer now Engage, or to even be social in the enterprise, with your consultant hat of the past on, when you talked a lot about Yammer and of course now under the Engage brand, what would you pitch as what makes it successful to implement it? We talked a little bit of maybe how people use it and should use it, but when you think about, at a scale of an enterprise, introduce something that isn't email, it's not Teams or Slack or whatever, it's something a little different. How do you position it, and how do you encourage people to do it in a way where it is successful, not just because it's fun or good to have, but they can fully adopt it and use it really well?
I think many people had experienced perhaps early on, if Yammer just got turned on in your organization and then it didn't have any governance and no guidance, and it became quickly not what you would want it to be. I have found over time that the trial and error approach works, and community managers are essential, especially if you're just starting a new network. It helps to plan out what purpose you want each community to have, and make sure that if that purpose is to help answer questions about Power BI or questions about how to develop Power Apps, that you've got people that have been recruited to be in that community who are willing to participate, and that there's a community manager who's there to help bring those people back in when left there for too long and then nobody comes back. I think community managers are essential in helping deploy a technology like a social for the enterprise community platform. They're just absolutely needed because they help keep the guardrails on, they help keep people connected, and but what people don't always understand is those community managers, it's not like it's a full-time job and it's the only thing you're ever going to do. It's usually you already care about that topic. Maybe it's your job to care about it, or maybe you just really, really like generative AI and you really, really like learning about new tools. And so you spin up your own community and you are therefore the community manager for that. And if somebody posts something, it's your job to like it or question it or answer the question that somebody has, or
mention somebody, draw them in.
Right, mention or share it with another community that you know would benefit from it. Or if you see something in another community, bringing it into yours. Those community managers, the people who really care about their community, help foster that sense of we are all in this together and we're going to help each other solve whatever this problem is, or work together, or be happier, or whatever. They are the glue that makes it happen. When communities don't work, or when you set up something and there's nobody there to manage it, I have this vision of somebody asking a question in like, let's say you've got a 500-person community, which is big for many companies. This person asks a question and it sits out there.
Hold on, let me make the sound of crickets.
So let's say it sits out there for 3-4 days, weeks, who knows. I envision this poor person sitting in an auditorium of 500 people who had the bravery to stand up and say, I have this question. And absolutely no one responded to them. Is just heartbreaking. And that to me is the value of a community manager, because they may not know the answer, but they can help that person find the answer or find someone who does know the answer. Yep. So that's the number one way to get success, is to make sure that you invest in community managers and invest in their success, invest in them being knowledgeable about the tool and all of its features and functionality, so that they can feel like they're contributing to the whole.
So if the community manager now is using Viva Engage, there's a couple new bells and whistles, and we can talk about them or not. This is not a full deep dive on Viva Engage, but one of the things that I've liked watching it evolve from Yammer to Engage is it's within the context of the whole Viva suite.
Exactly.
Of course, it's in the context of Microsoft 365. So I found some of the value is what's connected to Engage, or how you can put Engage outside of itself, so closer to maybe where people are reading some content on a SharePoint site. There might be the Engage web part, or on the homepage of the company portal. You have a question, plop it here. And the last one I'll mention, and then I'll let you kind of go if there's any specific new tech or new integration or a feature specific. One that I've really liked is this notion of question and answer. I ask a question, I actually list it as a question type post. And especially if something like Viva Topics is rolled out, that might go to somebody who is a part of the community or has been listed as a topic owner or a member of that topic that is a subject matter expert. Lots of room there to maybe kind of go from the role of an individual or people, a role like the community manager. How has Engaged enhanced or changed the game? Maybe I've mentioned a couple that triggered, but if you have anything that just is what we would call Yammer today, which is Engage, how has it improved in the way that you've seen it evolve?
Yeah, well, that's been such a fun thing to be a part of, to witness the journey that this product has gone on, and to be a part of that, and to be, as an MVP, to have been a part of the that evolution, because we are often like in the room asking, could we have this feature? What about that? Have you thought about this?
That's really good feedback.
It's really good feedback, yes. So that has been a very, very fun journey to watch. And I have thoroughly enjoyed how much more it is fully in the suite, and it is part of things. I love seeing it show up. When I got my first Teams notification for a Yammer community, I was so thrilled. That little pop-up came and I was like, oh, yay, finally it's all coming together, right? Or one of the things that I had that in the evolution of Viva Engage that I really love right now is the storylines feature. I love that I get to see and follow people that I did not know at EY who know all kinds of things about stuff that I never would have known that about them. And they're willing to put their story out there on.
And it's not always about something EY did. It's something maybe they did, or that they saw somebody else do, or it's like another avenue into not only that person's brain, but just an experience of, it's nice to know what other people are doing and learn through them.
It is. It is really nice. And people can be very vulnerable if they want to be, if they feel like they need to be, or they can just be like, I learned this new thing today and I don't see anybody else talking about it, so I'm just going to share it with you. And if you happen to read it and it happens to make your day, great. I really do love that sense of being able to share what you know and not having to worry about what community it belongs in, but then also being able to share that storyline. Like if I find people's stories sometimes where they're talking about a new technology that they're rolling out, and I will forward it or share it into a community that would benefit. I'm like, hey, did you see this? Like, you might want to check out this storyline or follow this person. Because they have some really great insights and maybe that person didn't know about that community, because let's just say we have thousands of communities.
One thing I'm trying to get the vernacular right is with Engage, and of course other tools alongside it, you have a place where somebody as an individual could have a voice. Hey, I read an interesting book, or I went to this museum and it kind of made me think about X or Y, or E and Y. No. And I also then think, well, of course, in the community, it's kind of a one-to-many, if not a big community coming together to help out each other. Then there's teams, that's one-to-few. There's email, that might be one-to-one or one-to-few, whatever. But I think there's that understanding of, I at least think I know when's a good time to do something in Engage versus maybe when I want to post it to teams or send an email. And sometimes it's a mixture of the two because, my role is making sure lots of people know about everything. So I'll hit everywhere I can that has eyeballs on it. But where I wanted to get your input is, as much as you've been using it or at least aware of it, Engage is certainly a part of a larger suite. It has a role to play in Viva Connections. You can have a community aspect on your portal, like we mentioned. There's a new one that's coming down the pike. It's got a great name for what it's really built for. So I'd love to get your take on what is Viva Amplify, not to, drill into a full 101, because I think we'll get that in spades, but to get the sense of what is Amplify, even if you're using Engage or even if you're using Connections.
Before I joined EY and when I was rolling out Yammer at Lubrizol, I used to do a fair bit of internal communications, and the tools that are available to internal communicators now and the ones that are coming, I'm so jealous of what they have in front of them. There's just so many amazing tools that I wish that I had had at the time. One of them is Amplify, which I am very excited for organizations to have, because while Yammer Viva Engage gives you, as a corporate communicator, you could post in a community about blah, blah, blah. Let's say the benefits for the people who live in Cleveland, Ohio, right?
And we can assign this to Drew Carey. I have to fit in Drew Carey at some point.
Right. But because maybe the way that particular community works, or the way it gets shared into another one, perhaps it's not, it gets seen by somebody who's not part of that community, and in some regulatory situations, and you're not really allowed to share certain stuff with all the people. You really want to pinpoint who you're sending it to. And I think Amplify is just like that great ability to target specifically who you want it to go to. It can still be broad, but it helps you amplify it to the people who really need to know, in the many, many ways that they want to consume information. Because I also don't believe that you can ever give up email. You can't give up Teams. You can't give up, for me, I can't give up Viva Engage. If you want to use them all, you can use them all. And you can use Viva Amplify to get you to the right place.
I think it has a nice way to do a kind of a one-to-many channel distribution. Obviously, I'm a little bit selfish on the tool that it uses to create the initial as a SharePoint page, wonderful web parts, and 100%. Go to town. New feature that we just launched, just to put in a little plug, Viva Amplify leverages the new news to email feature,
which I
love. Yeah, she's doing the little heart emoji with her hands, by the way. Just want to emphasize that to the news page to email team.
Love it.
But it's all the underpinning for what we think of as, a vast improvement of what a SharePoint page can do, and that when you send it to email or a community or a team, it kind of adopts where it's going. It knows what it needs to be to look good and still, of course, communicate for you.
Yep.
So have you used Amplify? Have you gotten any early access?
I unfortunately have not.
Watched some of the demos from afar?
I've watched the demos from afar, and I'm just really, really excited to see what people are going to do with it, because it just seems like a game changer for internal communicators.
So far, every once in a while, I will do a broader Viva pitch, to EBC customers. So very one-to-one type engagements. And I'm not your deepest Viva expert, but, I know enough to get through and at least pass it along to whatever they caught interest on. And so far, the two that have been a real kind of, I won't call them sell because I'm not a salesperson, but the really easy ones that just light up the room very quickly are Viva Engage. That one surprised me a little bit, but now it's sort of like expected. And when I show the Viva Amplify video, we don't yet kind of have it for full demo, but it's coming. And the demos that I've seen other people do with live code look really good. And I know the tech that they're building on, and it's sort of like, what a great use of the platform for a very unique, very powerful scenario.
Exactly. And it will only continue to improve. So, I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, and we didn't forget that last mile. How effective was your communication?
Right.
What are your metrics? We actually have good reporting built in, which is usually not the SharePoint strength.
Correct. I think that's going to be good and bad, because I think it'll be early days trying to figure out which metrics actually mean the most or matter the most. Sometimes you can measure speeds and feeds, but they're not really the things you always need to know.
Yeah. What is an impression? What's a view? What's a click?
Exactly. What does it all mean? It's going to be fun to watch that journey for sure.
So the next thing that I was interested, just kind of based on what you were saying earlier, you mentioned 2 times without any prompting, and maybe that's why I'm trying to phrase it that way. If you become a prompt engineer, you've mentioned generative AI a couple of times.
Yes.
So I kind of want to ask about that. Why has it been mentioned a couple times from Amy Dolzine? But I also just want to get a sense for when you, as an individual, working at EY, and maybe you've kind of already built up some expectations. If I work anywhere in the tech or in this field, I need to have X or Y, at my fingertips. But beyond what we've talked about today, I'm confident you use Viva Engage. Is there any other of the Viva apps that we haven't talked about, or any other tech, like you mentioned generative AI, that you're doing more with or are enjoying these days?
Well, there are several Viva things I do love. I do love Viva Insights for myself, the things that appear up on the side of my screen for in Outlook about when I should send a message, or and I love the seeing all the people I've collaborated with recently, or when my downtime is, and I have a prompt that comes up to praise my colleagues at 4 p.m. I love that. I love that part of the whole employee experience. I love what Microsoft is doing with that. And Viva Topics, I also adore, because whenever a little thing gets underlined on a SharePoint site that I'm near or that I'm on, and I say, oh, it's a Viva topic, I get very excited.
I kind of sometimes just like doing a hashtag, and as I type in the thing that I want to convey, I hope that the person receiving it realizes it's a topic. And on Hover, you'll get just so much more detail, and if ever they needed to understand more about that topic.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a nice offering to give to somebody, and of course to receive.
Yes. But then, like in my, I'm also using generative AI because I know it's coming to all the things.
That's a very solid statement. Generative AI is coming to all the things.
It's coming to all the things.
Where do you hope it comes to? What are some of all these things?
Well, I have been anxiously waiting it coming to Viva Engage, because there are times where I really want to post something, but I can't exactly figure out how to phrase it. So right now, in order for me to do that, I can go to Word and I can use Editor, and Editor can help me rephrase something if I don't like the grammar, or make it sound friendlier.
Spiffing up some of your communication.
Yeah, I can use Word, or I can also use if it's definitely like EY internal and I don't want it to go external, we have our own Azure OpenAI ChatGPT, so I can post like a few things that I can get some ideas of bullet points.
To be really clear, anybody at EY listening, she did not go out to the public internet and generate text so that she could use it for her internal or for EY type communication.
That
just to be really clear.
To be very clear, that is true. So I can do that now, but I have to go somewhere else to do it. So I'm excited for it to come to the tool that I'm using at the time, inline. And that's the other reason why I'm using these tools, is to get used to that. Rather than it just appearing and I don't know what to do with it, and also not being able to help other people know what to do with it. That's often my job I'm a technology evangelist just by nature, so people will ask me questions and I want to be able to know what I'm doing. I've been doing a lot of that, but then I also use it in my personal life. Microsoft Designer is so fun. It is such a fun little thing, and I love that it's now I have like my personal at live.com account, if anybody has a live.com account. So I use my personal one to, like on my personal computer for my, I'm part of a sorority, a Delta Gamma sorority, and I do a lot of my banners and things for Facebook messages and Instagram and stuff. Using Microsoft Designer, I'll say, I need this with an anchor, and I need to put these words on it, and then it formats it for me, and then I can spend a few minutes in spiffing it up and creating it from there.
And you take full credit for the end result, which is what it's designed for.
It's really, really fun. I do love that. But the other day we were in a meeting that I used that for a work function because we were trying to have a little fun at work. We were at a sales meeting and I got put into a group, and the people who were in my group are going to, if they ever hear this, are going to laugh because we were in the Javelinas group.
I have deep respect for the Javelinas.
Do you?
I grew up in Tucson, Arizona.
That's right.
And still to this day, the Javelina destroy a lot of my mother's property. because they dig up at the roots and they destroy anything that they get their tusks into. But anyway, continue. Javelinas.
I did not know what a javelina was. I went out to the public, Bing chat and said, what is a javelina? And it told me it was a warthog-looking thing, very smelly warthog in Arizona. And then I said, well, what's a group of javelinas called? And it said, it's a band. I was like, oh, that is what we are then. We're a band of javelinas. Designer, create me a realistic image of 5 javelinas in a rock band. And it came up with 5 javelinas, which they kind of look like javelinas. They kind of also look like rats because I don't know. It didn't really know what a javelina was.
It's probably not the biggest part of the model that they pulled from, but
probably not.
We can get them some new pictures from almost everybody I know in Arizona has some form of a javelina picture. I saw one today.
Anyway, so it was fun to bring that into the sales meeting. And even though it was just a fun thing, it helps expose people to the fun they can have with this technology that's coming instead of having to be afraid of it or worried about it or not know anything about it. I love that we have this ability to have fun with it, bring it to work, have people be their best selves and learn.
If you can share that image, I'd love to include it in the show notes so that people can see, A, what you're talking about, and B, maybe what a rat javelina looks like.
Sure, yeah.
I also want to make a book recommendation that when my children were younger, I used to read to them a lot. And there's a great book called Josefina Javelina. It is a wonderful illustrative journey of a javelina that goes on to do wonderful things. I would highly recommend it. Last little bit, are you thinking about future events, maybe thinking about Ignite, any place where people should be aware of where they should look for Amy next or hopefully next?
Well, they can always find me on LinkedIn, and with my fellow MVPs wherever we are, we're together. There's the Microsoft Ignite is coming up, and I really do hope that I will be there. I will definitely be at M365 conference coming up in the spring. I love that event, so I'll definitely be there. There's also a couple of events that are coming up globally that they're called Envision. There's one in New York the week of the 13th of September, and there's one they're in London and whatnot around the world. So if I can attend those virtually, I might be kind of there observing.
In the forums, in the chats, answering the questions.
Yep, that's what I do.
Well, I hope you do get to Ignite. We're still in the kind of the planning. FYI, everybody, Ignite just opened up for registration. So that's both in-person and digital. No guarantees on anything beyond that. There's, of course, a lot in planning. And the role that you played last Ignite, I hope you do get to do that again, in whatever form it takes for 2023. But I do appreciate you taking time out of your EY schedule, EY plus Microsoft schedule. I do hope that Cleveland continues to rock.
It does.
It's still hopefully not rude to say Cleveland rocks.
It rocks.
Okay.
It does.
But again, thanks for your time on the IntraZone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Always nice to catch up with Amy. I hope you got great insight into what she has expertise in. Now you have a little bit more expertise in communities within the enterprise and the value that they really bring in terms of how they can be additive, cohesive material when you go through your day-to-day with your peers, with your leaders. Top down, bottom up, side to side can be helpful across the board. Another thing that can be helpful across the board when you want to get a little bit deeper into something, when you want to get your questions answered, or sometimes maybe you want to be a presenter. There are always opportunities across events across the year, some destination type events where you might want to fly there, others that are most likely close in your backyard, and they occur everywhere and throughout the year. And we always like to highlight them, especially ones that are easy to engage, and of course, the ones that we have heard about and think are also valuable to share. The first one is right around the corner in October. It is a specific event that the OneDrive team is running. It's called The Future of File Management. And it really is a point in time where they're going to put a stake in the ground of some new innovation and share it with you. And that will be October 3rd at 10 a.m. Jeff Tieper will be helping kick it off with the OneDrive product team. And they are planning to showcase the next generation of file management across Microsoft 365. That same week is the Microsoft Power Platform Conference in Las Vegas. They've done it before. They're doing it again. If you want to go deep on the Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents, hear it from the leadership, the direction that we're going, hear it from your peers, how to do best practices and build your own low-code, no-code solutions. It is certainly the place to be. Las Vegas, October 3rd through the 5th, Microsoft Power Platform Conference. That same week, but in a different part of the country, is Collab Days New England. This is a bigger event for that part of the world in Burlington, Massachusetts. Again, October 5th. A lot of great folks that I've worked with over the years that often are recurring speakers, also supporting the event. And I know that they always do a really good job of putting together great content, a full day of immersion with your peers, and also a lot of great mind share too. Ask your questions, provide your feedback. Again, if you have something to share, a great place to show up if you're in the Massachusetts area. Just a little bit after that, the following week is the ARMA InfoCon. This is in Detroit, Michigan, October 9th through the 11th. This is one that my peer and your friend Chris McNulty is supporting, and will be there to help support what it is that Microsoft does in this space with things like Microsoft Syntex and Viva Topics, and of course the breadth of how people leverage SharePoint, but really plugging into a conference that is a little bit more broad than just Microsoft technology. Then around that same time, October 10th through the 11th in Washington, D.C. is Shift Happens. Make sure you say that one carefully. Shift Happens. It is an event that's put on by the AvePoint team and, of course, brings in a lot of great speakers, a lot of great topics, and you never know what shift will happen. Then we come to the end of October and we have the 365 EduCon in Chicago. That's October 30th through November 4th. We are in planning along with the event team on this one, where we're going to have a Microsoft-led keynote, lots of great breakout sessions. I've gone through the list of all the community and MVP sessions, and there's a lot of great content, whether you're IT, whether you're dev, whether you're planning for your business to go in a different direction. They're always really great. If you're in the Chicagoland area, I highly encourage registering, attending, getting a really nice deep dive across multiple days at a lot of different depth levels. Turning the corner, around that same time, November 2nd, is Community Days Mexico City, and this is at the Hotel Galleria Plaza Reforma. And of course, as you would expect from a community day, it's a full day, like in the past, SharePoint Saturdays, bringing the breadth of Microsoft 365 and the Power Platform. It's a really nice agenda laid out, and of course, a lot of great people, especially if you're in that area. Definitely make the trip into Mexico City. I know it's a big city. You'll find them, and you'll have a day's worth of great training, networking, and community building. A little bit later in November, November 14th to the 17th, is our first party show. It's a big one called Microsoft Ignite. It's hybrid this year with a lot happening in Seattle, Washington, and of course, most everything available online in real time. To review all the content, to catch all the news and announcements from across Microsoft. There's a lot of great things, from keynotes to breakout sessions to on-site labs, and a lot more information to come. Registration is now open. Get there if you want to learn more. The site has a little bit more information. And of course, you can expect that this is the full breadth of Microsoft leaning in to share what you need to know for the coming months and year. Just shortly after that is the European SharePoint Conference. This year it's going to be in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, November 27th through the 30th. The team that I often engage with, we are working with them again to help support it from a SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Power Platform, Viva perspective, plus. Always alongside great community and MVP leads that will be there to put on a great show, from keynotes to breakouts to workshops, and of course, a lot of smaller bite content so that you can see how to best use and benefit even as an end user. There's a lot of great targeted lightning talks that they're planning. And to round out the year is the European Cloud Summit in Wiesbaden, Germany. This is December 4th through the 6th, and it's a wonderful event team, always great speakers. I think I know who's coming from close to my team, but I'm not quite sure if it's public yet. But even if it isn't, they always have great speakers to cover day 1, day 2, day 3, and the depth of course, the cloud. A lot in terms of Azure and what you can do at scale when you're thinking about moving some of your app and solution investments into the cloud. So with that, there's always a ton of great events going on, and if there's any that we missed, we'd love to hear from you, ones that should be on the IntraZone so that we can highlight them. Let us know in advance so we can tell other people in advance so they have enough highlighted notice so they can choose where to attend to join in person, or like the OneDrive event, webinars that are important or of interest commonly to this tech industry. To close out, I want to thank our guest, Amy Dolzine, for being on the show and for sharing all the community goodness, past, present, and future. And we encourage you to check out our show page for links to all of what was discussed today and more. Just go to aka.ms/theintrazone. You can send us your questions and feedback for the SharePoint teams or any team that we represent on the show. You can reach us via email at theintrazone@microsoft.com or via Twitter at SharePoint, at mcashman, and at cmcnulty2000. And remember to rate, review, and tell your friends about the show, and follow the show wherever you get your favorite tech podcasts. Thank you for listening. I want to hope that you have a great rest of your morning, day, or hey, let's just make it the rest of the year after listening to this episode. This has been The IntraZone, a show about the Microsoft 365 Cleveland Rocks Intelligent Intranet.